Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Cannell, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Movie Battleground. Tonight is the first of two sort of rookie matchups this week, as we have two of sort of the similar type matches. We have a competitor who made their debut earlier this season in Jeremy Potter's returning after picking up a first victory. And because this rather than last season where we sort of had a whole slew of rookies rolling at once that could all sort of play each other, it's been a little more staggered this year. So we have Maria Hammon making her debut against Jeremy. Of course, Jeremy does have the experience, so that gives him a little bit of an upper edge here. But quite frankly, I don't think either of them care who wins tonight. I think they're just here to see what the judges think. This is really a judges game tonight, boys. You're the one that's on competition. So we'll go ahead and talk to the competitors. Introducing first, making her debut in the Movie Battleground, we have Maria Hammon. Maria, welcome. How are you feeling
Thank you.
tonight?
I'm feeling nervous. Excuse me. Hopefully, I'll do a good job. And I've judged one, so I understand what's supposed to be done and how it's supposed to work. But I hope I can live up to at least that one. So anyway, we'll see. I like Jeremy a lot, so it doesn't bother me if he were to win. I just want to do a good job and have some fun.
Absolutely. So what do you think is, because obviously you did at least get to see one of these in person.
Hmm.
What was something that maybe like you when you saw that match, you're like, oh, okay, I can sort of, is there anything you sort of took from that you think could help you? Because obviously you did watch two of our more higher ranked competitors play.
Correct. I watched and I voted mostly for Chadwick, because he was great. He was on fire that night, and I learned a lot about what I should be looking at and what I shouldn't be looking at as far as the movies that my competitor picked as well as the ones I did, and I didn't realize that was part of this deal. So he was very helpful in an unknown way by watching his the way he behaved and how he handled it. I was really impressed, and so I learned something from him definitely. And Will was good too, but I mean, I just Chadwick really was on fire. He was great that night. So great role
Absolutely.
model.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in your opponent. Coming in with a record of one win, no defeat. He is Jeremy Potters. Jeremy, welcome back, sir. How are you feeling coming into your second match tonight?
Thanks for having me. I feel good. Like we've established, there's no pressure here. We're gonna have fun and talk about movies that we like more than likely. I kind of wish I had been on the match that Maria was in, so I would have gotten some pointers from Chad also. So maybe you can throw some stuff down in chat. No, I'm just kidding. But no, let's have fun. We're loose and wild, man.
Hey, fair enough. All right. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Let's get to actually it's 5 o'clock while it's airing, so let's get to it. Go ahead and get this started. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is a first to 3 points wins the match. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. If at the end of 3 rounds we do have a 3-0 score, that will be a victory by knockout. And if at the end of 4 rounds it is a 2-2 tie, we do have a tiebreaker called the blind round that will only worry you about that if we have to go to it. With all that said, though, the questions that you guys have, you have had them. You've had some opportunity to put some arguments together. You will get 60 seconds to open up the argument, followed by a 2-minute expansion period. There will be a 4-minute open discussion where you'll go back and forth and sort of get your points in, and then you will get 60 seconds to close out the match. Following that, I have two judges backstage in the form of Jake and Chad. They will join us on screen, at which point they will make a decision based on the arguments. Should they come to a disagreement, I'll also be taking notes and will serve as the tiebreaker should we need it. With all that said, though, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. And there is no better way to challenge newer competitors than just throwing the absolute book at them with a question like this. It's a really, honestly, there really is only one answer to this question. The question is, what is the best film of the 1980s? And that's not the year 1980, that's the whole decade. What is the best film of the 1980s is the question. Behind the scenes, Jeremy, because you have at least played a match, you won that match, you are deemed the favorite. I know you don't want to claim that title, but you are technically. So you had a choice of which questions to go first on. You chose to go first on 2 and 4, which means, Maria, you're going to get to go first on this one as I go ahead and bring
Thank you.
in the timer for you. It will start once you guys begin speaking. As always, best of luck to both competitors.
Caddyshack is a movie that I have loved since it came out in 1980. The imagination that it took to bring that to the screen, imagination by Harold Ramis, who was the director. The writers were Harold and Doug Kinney, and Doug Kinney is a legend in the comedy field at that time. And they did a good job, but they also got input from Brian Doyle Murray, who had been a caddy, and the basis of all the caddy interactions are on his experience as a youth. And I think it's just a great movie. I think it's funny, it's touching, it's sweet. It's also just hilarious in spots. I mean, Harold didn't expect to have that much talent on set, so they had to rewrite everything to accommodate all those great guys like Rodney Dangerfield, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase. They expanded cameo spots to be part of the movie. So it's a really good movie, really good, great people in it, and very, very funny. And it's my favorite movie of the 1980s.
All right, that is time. Jeremy, back over to you for your opening minute.
So today in movies, we see a lot of the same tropes used over and over and over again. Bad guy turns good, helps good guys save the day. It's a big final battle between good and evil to end the whole series. See it all the time. They're trying to do it over and over and over. But the first film to do it the right way, and the reason everybody does it now, is Return of the Jedi. It's the best movie from the 80s. It took Star Wars and finished it until later, but gave the culmination of the story that built for over the course of 5 or 6 years, 3 movies before there was episode this or episode that. It was the first one to bring Darth Vader, the Emperor, Luke, everybody together and wind down this crazy sci-fi opera space family drama thing, and they managed to pull it off. Also, there's cuddly little space bears that eat people, which is awesome. And when you're a kid, you love it, and I still love it.
And time. All right. So we have Caddyshack versus Return of the Jedi. All film critics are shitting themselves right now. That said, Maria, back over to you for Caddyshack. 2 minutes on the clock now when ready.
Okay, this Caddyshack started out as allegedly to be the story of Danny and a friend of his and the girl, Maggie, who ends up, thinking she's pregnant, but she's not. But because he had all this star power on set and these people went off the rails ad-libbing, he ended up making an entirely different movie. In fact, they didn't tell the actor who played Danny until way after the story was really supposed to be about him, in that coming of age story. But it ended up being so hilarious with Rodney Dangerfield ad-libbing every scene he was in, with Bill Murray doing the same. The scene where Bill Murray, is playing golf at the Masters, Cinderella story. That went on for over 30 minutes. They took out the best 2 minutes of it. So God knows what that set must have been like, as far as everybody ad-libbing, taking their time. I mean, it's amazing that the movie even got finished, but I understand there was also some drug use. That was the 80s, the early 80s, late 70s. I mean, cocaine on the set, that was probably pretty common. I don't know how that happened, but I wasn't there. But I don't know if it fueled them or if it made them worse or whatever, but they had late calls. They had all kinds of problems. They were working in Florida. There was some sort of major storm that took out half the sets, and they managed, with all the talent that they had on set, to make a movie that is funny, coherent. I mean, it doesn't seem like, listening to some of the behind the stories things, that it should have been coherent, but they made it work. And I tell you, there's not a time when I watch that thing that there isn't something that I've seen a billion times that I still laugh out loud as though it's the first time I've ever seen it. I mean, there's just so many moments. Want to make $14 the hard way, and all these jokes that are in the lexicon of everybody now, because this movie is so great. So I just love it.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
Return of the Jedi picks up after the giant cliffhanger from Empire, right? They've got Han and Carbonite. I am your father. No. And here we are. We're jumping. We're in the desert. We're seeing who's lurking around. First off, it introduces a bunch of new characters at the time. We're all very familiar with them now, but nobody had seen Jabba the Hutt. Nobody had seen. I mean, you saw Boba Fett for a scene. You didn't see any of this stuff that they showed in the first act of the movie, and then they kill everybody off, which is great because you have to go finish the story, and the story is the Skywalker saga. Didn't call it that at the time, but it was a story of a father who had messed up and at the end turns it back around, sees that this evil guy, this emperor, is going to kill his kid just for the sake of more power and more power. And he comes back. And it's that first redemption story in mainstream movies like that. There hadn't been a villain turn good. Lex Luthor didn't become a good guy in the Superman movies. The Nazis didn't become good guys in the Indiana Jones movies. But the worst guy in the galaxy turns it around for the love of his son and to be a Jedi again. And also the action. Great scenes on Andor or what's the moon. You know what I'm talking about. I've already forgotten what it's called. Yeah. The final connection between Leia and Han and to complete the love story. Like it wraps everything up with a nice little bow. Yoda, the whole bit, everything comes together. And then at the end, there's a party. And who doesn't love a good party? Right? The whole galaxy celebrates the party. And it's wonderful. I yield my 5 seconds.
All right, so we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion here. As always, I like to remind people, try not to talk over each other too much, give each other a chance to breathe and get some points in, but you'll find a rhythm for it as you go. The timer starts back up when the first competitor speaks.
Jeremy, I would like to tell you that Return of the Jedi sucks. However, I know it doesn't. In fact, it's one of my favorite movies. You picked one that's really hard for me to diss. I have nothing to say bad about it. I think it's great. I think you're great. I think it's a fun movie to introduce, to end this in that particular trilogy, which we didn't know there was going to be 2 more. And even Star Wars itself, the main movie, I loved it. It was complete. There was a ceremony at the end that I don't care about Chewbacca getting a medal, but whatever. Sorry. I know that's not popular, but I thought it was a perfect movie. And then they brought these 2 sequels, and then Return of the Jedi is pretty awesome. I can't say anything bad about it. So I have nothing to say that's negative. I apologize for that because I love it too. I don't love it as much as maybe you do, but I do enjoy watching it again and again with my grandkids. It's fun.
Yeah, I also would love to tear apart Caddyshack. And outside of like cinematography, I really don't know what I could say. Yeah. Like a lot of, like you said, it overcame a lot of behind the scenes stuff, which is kind of amazing. But it could have been better if they had just gotten people to like maybe focus and really put some stuff together instead of just ad-libbing and back and forth and just hoping that the camera catches something good that we could use.
Right.
Well, in Return of the Jedi, like it was planned. It was planned out. Probably not when the first movie was made, but after that money came in, they were like, yeah, we got to keep going. And they're still doing it. But I think these movies are so different. There's no way it's hard to compare and contrast.
Right. There's no really way. There's no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, yours is more interesting. Trust me. Go ahead.
But yeah, at the time, the special effects were cutting edge in Return of the Jedi. I don't know where they came up with the idea for Ewoks, but I love them and I'm glad they exist. They make me happy.
Teddy bears. Yep.
It's like gummy bears gone wrong.
Yeah, I know. It's the fourth moon of Endor, by the way. You were right.
I was right.
You were right. I think the Return of the Jedi, I can't find any flaws in it. I mean, the only thing I wanted out of it that I didn't get is more romance between Han and Leia. But you know what? They were subtle. They were good. He loves her. She knows this time, it was her turn. I think the movie itself, though, is just fulfilling in that we get the redemption of Darth. We get Luke, in fact, he was almost swayed to kill him. And then he remembered what the hell's going on here. And turned off his saber and said, "I'm not going to do this." So I mean, I don't think it's a bad movie in any way. I wish I could find something wrong with it. I mean, like you say, we're comparing apples and a pineapple here because there's some hairy stuff on your side, but I mean, it's good. And my stuff is just insane. I mean, the gopher, they didn't even have the gopher in the movie until the end. They decided to add something to put some continuity in it because it was so, all over the place. And that's why the gopher exists. And they went back and shot that. And I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that didn't.
I will say one thing
plan.
about Caddyshack is it's fantastic. It's one of my favorites.
It's funny.
Googla to you. But it's not even the best movie from the 80s with Kenny Loggins having the main song.
Right. That's true.
I would say Top Gun is better.
I was going to say Top Gun. If we were talking Top Gun, now we're talking a whole different.
I would say Footloose.
Footloose.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say that. I can't say that out loud.
You can. I mean, Footloose is good. What can you say bad about Footloose other than the fact that it's a dumb story that some preacher dictating the morals of a community? Whatever. I can talk on Footloose forever.
All right, we're going to go into the 1 minute closings. Maria, you're back up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Okay. Caddyshack survived despite itself. Let's put it that way. I mean, the cocaine parties they had every night, Harold Ramis and the other producer would come into each actor's trailer before they start shooting and ask them if they wanted some cocaine before they started. I mean, I think that was just the way it was then, but I'm glad as a Midwesterner that I didn't know anything about that. It wouldn't have influenced me too much, but I would have wondered what the hell's going on in Hollywood, which apparently was going on and I didn't know anything about, which is fine. Guess what? They don't call me. I want them to call me and ask me my opinion. They don't. The best I can get is Warner Brothers asking a few questions. Anyway, Caddyshack turned out, despite itself, to be one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And like I said before, there's so many moments that I quote all the time. I always say, so you've got, I have that going for me, like the Dalai Lama speech that Bill says. And it's just funny. It's just great. It's just, there's nothing bad I can say about it. I mean, I think it's good, even though it didn't need to be.
And time. All right. And then Jeremy, back over to you.
Return of the Jedi is the best 80s movie because it delivers everything everybody wanted at the time. It completes the story that Star Wars set up. It has great special effects, great actors, great characters, great settings. Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor is iconic. Like, I've only seen him in a few other movies, but everybody knows him from his role, his turn in Return of the Jedi. And there's just something about it. Now at this point, there's nostalgia with it for me because I kind of watched them backwards as a kid. I started with Return of the Jedi and then wanted to see more. So I love it personally, and I know many people do love it. The only thing I could say about it other than that is they should have stopped there. It should have been the end. It's that good. They should have figured that out.
I agree.
And time. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put the competitors in the back and bring the judges on screen here. Jake, I'm going to go to you first. Who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
I got Potters here. Maria actually had it in the first 2 rounds and then kind of did not have it, but Potters kept consistent with the action, actors, special effects, wrapping up the trilogy, just the overall epicness.
All right, Chad, down to you.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with Tato there. It was kind of like Maria was kind of trying to bring in a lot of the behind the scenes and stuff, which is very interesting, but it just really didn't have to do with the quality of the movie that much. And, then she kind of refused to fight the other movie, which is fine, if you love all these movies. But yeah, Jeremy actually gave me one kind of negative sort of for Caddyshack, and then he just really was able to sell his movie really hard the whole time. So yeah, I mean, it was a nice off, and that's cool. But yeah, I threw it over Jeremy's way.
All right, thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back And we're going to go ahead and move on to question number 2. All right. Well, we've seen you guys can be nice, so now let's force you to get mean. That's what we're going to do. Retroactively, we're going to force it. All right.
Okay.
The question is, who was the worst Batman? And we are arguing a portrayal in film, not the overall quality of the films. So again, this is to be focused on the performance of the actual actor in the Batman character, not the overall quality of the film itself. With that said, though, Jeremy, you are up first on this one, so the timer will come back up for you, and it'll start when you begin speaking.
So obviously, I'm a Batman fan. So it pains me that when I got to pick this category for this match tonight, that Aaron would flip it around and make me talk shit about Batman. But it's fine, because there's one that I would love to talk shit about, especially since I don't have to pick the movie apart. I can just go at the guy, and that's George Clooney, Bat Nips. He's awful. He was a terrible choice. He's a good actor. He can even do the deadpan stuff if he wants to. I've seen the Ocean's movies. He can do it. He didn't do it. He went on screen, and then he went off screen, and then he come back on screen. Nothing happened in between. I don't remember anything that he does until I watch the movie again. The only thing I remember is he pulls out a credit card. Wow. And that was his Batman. Not even, that's a Bruce Wayne move. Yeah, he's just, he's a lump in a suit with extra lumps on the suit. He's bad. It's real bad. And we'll get more into that.
All right, Maria, over to you.
Christian Bale. He was the worst Batman, in my opinion. He took the role of Bruce Wayne so seriously and so realistically that the rest of the movie just seems disjointed. I mean, we're talking about a person that has half a face. We're talking about a Joker. We're talking about all kinds of stuff in those movies that he almost is out of place. He's realistic to the, I'm a crime fighter, but he doesn't really solve the crimes that he needs to solve. And he isn't part of the fantastical world that the Batman comics are part of. His gruff voice is all he's got going for him, really, and is almost a caricature of what the worst Batman could be. Why do you think you need to talk like that when you're Batman? I mean, I don't get it. He's just out of place in where he's at. He needs to be more into the superhero genre, and this is a fantastical journey, not crimes against people.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
George Clooney was a megastar when this movie came out. A megastar, the biggest TV actor at the time. ER was a monster. And then he decided to go make movies. And he did From Dusk Till Dawn. Awesome. Crushed it. And which actually I think came after Batman. I'm not even sure at this point. But Batman, it didn't work. I get that he was going for like the Adam West, like kind of just deadpan, dry delivery. They were trying to make a comedy, but all the good lines are ate up by Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie. He gives the best performance in the movie, not saying much, but George Clooney is by far the worst. Every scene he's in is irrelevant, and he's the main character. That's the problem. Like everybody else is far more interesting in the movie than anything he does. And that's because they brought their energy to it. They embraced what they were doing, and he just went to makeup and costume, put on the suit, and then walked out in red lines, and then went back and took off the suit and went back out in red lines. He didn't do anything with the character. And every other version of Batman does something distinct. Everybody, Adam West, Michael Keaton, everybody has their Batman is recognizable, and Clooney is just Clooney in a bat suit. Like the pictures they took with the three of them, and they were showing off the suits, like Entertainment Weekly or whatever it would have been. That's all he did. He just showed up for photo sessions and some filming, and then got a paycheck that he shouldn't have got. So he's by far the worst Batman because you can't remember anything about his portrayal. I'm good.
All right. Bump it forward a little bit there. All right, Maria, we'll go back over to you. You have 2 minutes. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I think Christian Bale's the worst Batman because he talks crazy. He seems like, it's too deep and too exaggerated. It's like, come on. You don't need to do that. It's more, you can hear it more in the third movie than any other, that he sounds so crazy, so kind of dumb, kind of like he doesn't know what he's saying and where he's at or whatever. It's almost like he's cosplaying Batman instead of being Batman. He looks crazy. The costume is terrible to look at, especially the headpiece. I mean, it's just looks like something you'd find at Walmart in the hat section. I don't understand why anybody thinks everybody tells me he's the greatest Batman. I'm like, for what reasons? You don't have any, because he's not a terrible actor. It's just that he's not playing this like he should. He should be part of this society that's nuts. I mean, they have a bat signal to call people to them. I mean, this is not a normal thing. This is not supposed to be a normal thing. You don't have to play it like it's real. You have to play it like it's a fantasy, like you're looking at the comic book, which we all know is not true, however much we'd want it to be. I mean, there's no way that, real life people would do those kind of crazy things, stand on top of a building all night and wait for something to happen. That's kind of nuts. But I think the enemies are always so much more interesting in anything he's in, because he's just nothing. He's just there. I don't like him as Batman. I think he did a terrible job. I don't think that any of the movies are better than the villains. And those villains are something spectacular. Look at Heath Ledger. I mean, give me a break. He looks like he doesn't even know what he's doing compared to Heath Ledger. And when you talk about, any kind of villain in any of the movies, he's always on the deficit side. He's not doing anything. He wants to be Bruce Wayne more than he wants to be Batman. And although he's playing Bruce Wayne, he's still messing up that. Do we need a Bruce Wayne that's like that? That's not what we saw in the comics. We need him to be different. We need him to take, a look at the comics that he's supposed to be in, and take some notes from that before he starts acting. That's my opinion.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Timer starts when the first competitor speaks.
I will give your guy some credit. He said he's doing the wrong kind of acting. But at least he's acting. George Clooney didn't do any acting. None. He did none. Zero. And Christian Bale fits in the world that was created around him. Like, I think he was very much aware that he was going to have to really lean into overemphasizing Batman versus Bruce Wayne, because that trilogy they're the ones that have the most equal time. There's as much Bruce Wayne as there is Batman, and he had to distinguish it one way or the other. And I think he did that well. George Clooney does nothing.
I like George Clooney.
Difference. There's no difference in between how he plays Batman and how he plays Bruce Wayne.
Gotcha. I don't think George Clooney is the worst. He had the worst suit, maybe, with the nipples. I thought that was insane. That's crazy. But I don't think he was as bad as Christian Bale is. Christian Bale's trying to be somebody in a movie that isn't that movie. I mean, we're not having that movie that he thinks he's in. We're having the movie that everyone else knows they're in. Two-Face, Rachel, everybody. They know what's the deal. He don't get the deal. He's doing his own thing out there. I just can't understand why anybody thinks he's the greatest Batman ever. I'm never going to believe that. I think the villains are great. I think he sucks. Really.
But he fits what the movies need, because like you said, you're right, the movies are villain driven movies for the most part, and he has to fit they use the villains to grow the character. But I think Christian Bale does a great job. His scenes with Michael Caine are really good, believable scenes. They deliver each other, like they work well off of each other. And as Bruce Wayne, the real Bruce Wayne, not the public Bruce Wayne, he really is troubled and really does want to right the wrongs of the city.
Jeremy, you ignorant slut. I was going to use that in one way or another. No, he's not the best. I mean, Christian Bale, give me a break. I mean, honestly, he's a method-y type, and I swear to God, he missed the mark totally on being Batman. I mean, I don't understand why the voice change, why the crazy, way he acts. That outfit is crazy. It's just, everything's awful. I'm sorry. I love Heath Ledger. I love any villain in any of those movies. He stands out to me because of his absolutely stellar performance in that movie. But Jeremy was not up to that. Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. Sorry, Christian was not up to the task of fighting him in the same way. I mean, it's just almost like you take a person in a reality TV show and then you add in a villain that is awesome from another TV show and you try to make this happen. It's not going to work. He did not get the grasp the ideas of what Batman really is. I just don't understand why everybody thinks he's so great.
But George Clooney is by far worse because in a world full of cartoons, that movie is a cartoon and he's a stick figure. Like there's no animation, nothing happened. He doesn't do anything to help the character. And it killed a franchise. His performance of Batman killed it and is what made way for the Batman Begins the Dark Knight trilogy for Christian Bale to come 11 years later as Batman, or 8 years later as Batman, because he did so bad. It wasn't a character anybody wanted to see. It wasn't a character anybody wanted a part of. They almost killed Batman with George Clooney. And Christian Bale only made it more popular.
Well, I think the best Batman right now, in my mind, is Ben Affleck. And that's another story. For another time.
Why did you say that name?
I didn't say Martha.
All right, so we'll go on to the 1 minute closings. Jeremy, back over to you, sir, when ready.
I mean, arguments aside, I feel like it's just such an easy call. And I mean, it's the most pan movie, and he's the worst performance in the movie. Ice puns aside, plant jokes, all the goofy stuff that they do, he's not a part of any of it. None of it. He doesn't have any good one-liners. He doesn't. All he's got is the credit card scene from the trailer. That was probably just a Visa commercial at the time. I don't remember.
I think it was. Yeah.
That's it. Like he's just, here's the guy from ER. He's Batman. No, man. They should have put Noah Wiley or Anthony Edwards. Anybody would have made a better Batman from ER.
I like Anthony Edwards.
Like, bald or not, I don't care. A mute goat would have performed better than George Clooney, which is sad because he's obviously done so much. He's a great actor. He's a great entertainer, and he used none of it in Batman and Robin.
All right, that is time. Obviously, if people are being funny, I don't mind the laughing. Just as a reminder not to interrupt while they're speaking. But back over to you, Maria. You do have 1 minute on the clock when ready.
I think that George Clooney is extremely handsome. There's not anything I watch him in that I don't go, wow, it's George Clooney. I had trouble believing him as Batman, but not because of what the reasons you had. It's just because, he's so good looking. He seemed more sophisticated than the role. I think in all of that, he did embrace the idea that he was a superhero, not, next door neighbor that just ended up, training to be that superhero and, take it on the mantle. Batman's problem is, and has always been, he only has money. He doesn't have any kind of special skills. He can pull out his Visa, as we already remarked, and he can buy himself any toy he wants to do whatever the job is. Christian Bale, on the other hand, didn't have to go that route, but he didn't also go the route of being in that world, being with those characters. He was not part of that world. He acted like he was above it, or he was doing a real person, which is not what we wanted. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't like him in those movies. I love everybody else, and he can just go away.
And time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring the judges in here. All right. Chad, I'm going to go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
This one's actually really tough for me because, Maria was, really actually selling me pretty hard, just saying that, her Batman, was in a different kind of movie, and, he was so not acting that great, especially with the voice and stuff like that, that the high acting in that movie just made it look even worse. And so she was really selling me hard there. I'm going to go Jeremy still on this, just slightly, because I think he gave me more of the full idea of his is the worst and Christian Bale was at least doing something in the movie. And he actually did know what movie he was in. he gave me the full thing there, and Maria, I think, even still said that George Clooney didn't work as Batman, even though it wasn't like what Jeremy said. She still said he didn't work as Batman. So I like, I'm trying to, I picked Jeremy. Sorry.
All right, Jake, down to you.
Yeah, I got Maria on this one. Jeremy had a couple of those good lines and stuff about the nips and the card, but Maria threw it back and said, that's not like Clooney's fault. That's the movie. And it's specifically not about the movie. It's about the Batman. When she called him an ignorant slut, that was fantastic. I always approve of that line. But no, on the real, she actually had me convinced, like, is Christian Bale a worse Batman than I thought? Like, I'm going to have to go back and check, genuinely. So that's always good. Maria.
All right, which means it will come down to me, and I am going to give my point to Jeremy on this, only because it felt like at some point the argument kind of came to, they were both sort of discussing the idea of their Batman fitting the world that their movie's in, and I think Jeremy kind of surmised that point the best out of any of the statements that were made by saying, if this movie is a cartoon, he's a stick figure, whereas I think I get what Maria was going for, but I think at times it sounded a little counterintuitive, because talking about how he's too serious in a world, but then also commenting on the realism and the seriousness of the villains themselves. It felt a little contradictory, whereas I think Jeremy very much had the idea nailed of Clooney is giving no performance in a movie where everybody is at a 10, and thus it makes him stick out in a worse way than I think you could argue Bale does. So it's margins, but I'm going to give it to Jeremy there. Judges, thank you guys, of course. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back. And we're going to jump into question number 3 here. And it's always interesting to have a situation like this where a judge gets to judge a question that they actually wrote. Because one of our judges, Mr. Chad Webb, did write this question. In fact, he wrote it for a match that I was in. But we didn't get that far because I knocked Papa's ass out. The question is, what is the best film featuring or starring or featuring, either way, Brendan Fraser? Fun fact, 2 totally different movies were picked for that match between myself and Papa. It would have been a very, very different question. But we do have 2 solid options here. Let's see what they can make of it. Maria, you are back up first, so I'm going to throw it over to you. Time starts once you begin speaking.
My favorite movie with Brendan Fraser is Journey to the Center of the Earth. I'll tell you why. Basically, Brendan signed on to that movie with an idea that it was going to be vetted by James Cameron, that he was going to get possibly a shot at being an Avatar if he completed this movie correctly. That didn't happen. I don't understand why. But the idea that someone would sign on to a movie, just the idea of doing another movie in the future, is interesting to me, because why would anybody actually do that? But I guess it all boiled down to his performance, and he didn't get asked for the next party. But it's funny to think that he could have possibly been one of the big stars in Avatar. I mean, I know he's having a renaissance, a new resurgence, and I think that's great for him. I've always loved him. I didn't know he was having that much trouble and was gone so long. But I think that this movie's pretty good. I mean, I think he does a great job in it. It's basically a story of people exploring and finding out that they're in the center of the earth. I mean, it's a time old tale. Sorry.
All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
The 90s were a fun time. Movies were fun for the most part. And even movies that people might look back on and go, man, that's bad. They're still fun. And one of those movies that gets an undeserved amount of crap is George of the Jungle, baby. I love this movie. Movies based on comic strip cartoons, like weird little things. There was a lot of them in the 90s. I almost went Dudley Do-Right for this just because it's the same kind of thing. But it has Tarzan out of the jungle in New York City kind of a thing. But it's funny and it's cute and it's sweet. Leslie Mann is amazing in it. The anime, like they use puppets and stuff. Like there's no CG yet, So you had the puppet gorilla and all these things and his friends in the jungle, but he's still a moron and it's still fun. And look out for that tree. But George of the Jungle is the best, most fun Brendan Fraser movie.
And time. All right, Maria, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock.
When I think of George of the Jungle, I think of the cartoon and how much I loved it when I was younger. My kids loved it when they were younger. Um, I just don't know that that's the best vehicle for him. And the reason I say that is he's more intelligent than that role would have let him be. I mean, as far as the dialogue, the what he had to portray, who he had to become. I mean, I agree that he's good in it, but I think he's better in the movie that I have picked. Journey to the Center of the Earth is really the Jules Verne story that basically has been retold about 5 times on the silver screen. This is a 2008 version, but I mean, there's more even after that. And basically, the idea that you could walk somewhere, that you could traverse and get into the center of the Earth, is obviously not correct. I mean, it's molten lava and stuff. You'd be dead before you even got close. But I mean, the idea is whimsical. It's kind of like what could happen down there, what would be down there, would there be people, would there be things, would they be whatever. And this story is like I liken it more to like a Harry Potter type thing where there's a goal to be reached. They reach the goal. They have to do some things to achieve the goal, and then they have to get out of there. And I don't know that that has anything to do with Harry Potter, but for some reason it reminds me of those kind of stories where there's always a challenge. We have to face it, like the chess game in Harry Potter, Sorcerer's Stone. Things like that. There's a goal. We have to change what we're doing to make it, achieve the goal, and then we have to get the hell out because it's going to implode. And I think that's what makes him such a great actor. Is this is pretty, this is a lot of different things coming at the same time. We didn't even know he was trying out for Avatar, and he didn't either. And I think it's actually a pretty good representation of the best of his acting, in that he could, pull this off. Because I mean, it's pretty fantastical. I mean, who thinks we could actually do that? No one. But he pulled it off. He did a good job.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
If he was trying out for Avatar, he should have used George of the Jungle because he was jacked, like he's cut. He was like in great shape, probably the best shape of his life, right? Just ahead of the Mummy. He's in the loincloth all day long. He had to bring that kind of energy to it and be a jungle man. And the hair, I mean, it's almost Encino Man just kind of transplanted. Like it looks the same, But the movie's so much fun. There's nothing in it. There's nothing gets too serious at all. Even like the climaxes with the villain and the girl, and he's got to save his girl. But it's still goofy and silly, and it never takes itself serious at all. It lampoons itself from beginning to end. It's joke after joke after joke. But it's got heart, and it's got a good little story. There's nothing, no stakes that are big. He was obviously not going to win an Oscar for this one, but it's great family entertainment, and it's hard to find that sometimes. But you could always look, and it's not just, I mean, Brendan Fraser has done a lot of great family entertainment. I mean, even Maria's movie is a great family movie. But George of the Jungle allows everybody to indulge in silliness and absurdity with the idea that it's going to be silly and absurd. So that's why I love it. It's why I love a lot of movies. I love silly and absurd. And I always look back fondly on it. And when I watch it, I go, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, he did the thing again. It's one of those. Is it his best acting performance as an individual actor? Obviously not. But it is the best movie that he's been in. I yield the rest of my time.
All right, so we'll pause it. Skip just ahead there. We're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start back up when the first competitor speaks.
I don't know if anybody's aware, but the Journey to the Center of the Earth ended up being the first live-action 3D movie ever made, because the technology was being tested by Cameron, and also the apparently blind screen test that poor Brendan Fraser was going through and didn't realize he was going through. That movie is actually credited as the first 3D live-action movie, and I think that's pretty special. I think it's, he did a great job acting in it. I guess he didn't make the cut for Avatar, but who knows about James Cameron? You know what I'm saying? And George of the Jungle. I love the song. George, George, George of the Jungle. Watch out for that tree. I think he did a good job in there, but I don't think the acting was really as nuanced as it could have been it should have been for Journey to the Center of the Earth. I think he did a great job there. I know he wasn't in the sequel, but that was his own decision. The Rock replaced him, but it wasn't because he wasn't asked. He was asked. He decided not to do it for whatever reason. Who knows? I don't know the man personally. So far. Maybe after seeing this, maybe he'll want to chat me up. I doubt it.
But like you said, like he didn't even get to come back for the sequel. Like they mentioned his character, and he's just not there. And they went with the whole he's my stepdad, and we've got to learn to get along angle.
Right.
But yeah, there's none of that. George of the Jungle. It's the man ape swinging through the trees, talking to an ape named Ape, and just having a fun all time. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like if you want to break that movie down and talk about his performance here versus that performance there, it doesn't matter. It's a living, breathing cartoon in a time when it was much harder to make a living, breathing cartoon. Like there was no CG add-ons. There's no extra effects that they could use. The computers weren't rolling for that kind of movie. And it's for the better because it feels like you could see it and touch it and play with it. And it's what you want to do.
Well, you're making me think about it a little bit more, but I really don't think, like I say, I don't think his acting skills were as prevalent as they could have been in that movie. I think the movie's great. I love it. It's fun. Who doesn't like to watch somebody be silly for, a couple hours? And Brendan Fraser's not too hard to look at either. So anyway, meanwhile, back in Journey to the Center of the Earth, Jules Verne wrote that book eons ago, before we were even aware that he was even, around. I met him on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea back in the day. I thought, oh, who wrote this? And I read the books. But it's interesting that he put in such a performance that he was asked to be, as the things that he was asked to do in that movie, he pulled off without a hitch. And it's really kind of ridiculous that you would do stuff in front of green screen that ended up being what seems to be seamless. I mean, I don't know how the CGI worked back then. I'm not a aficionado of how technical aspects of movies work, but I know that he acted his little heart out, and I think he did a great job at that. And I think that the nuanced performance outshines George. I mean, George's a pretty simple character. I mean, that ain't too hard to play. I could probably do that. I could probably swing. Wait a minute, I'm not gonna have upward body strength.
And I'll give you credit. Like his acting, for the sake of Journey to the Center of the Earth, is better. But I think George of the Jungle is a better movie. It's not reliant on any of the special effects, the 3D gimmick. It was just a fun family romp that you get the kids, get grandma, get everybody together because everybody can enjoy it. And it worked. It wouldn't work today. If you brought out a white jungle man today, nobody's going to go watch that movie. Like, it's just not going to happen. Whether you base it off of George of the Jungle or not, or another Tarzan or whatever, nobody wants to see it now. But in the 90s, it worked, and it was brilliant.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 1 minute closings. Maria, you're back up first.
I think it's interesting that the film was successful enough. They wanted a second movie, that he turned down the role. I don't know why. He didn't talk to me about it. I would have given him advice. Take it, whatever. But Margot Robbie has come out and said that the reason she wanted to be an actor, was because of Journey to the Center of the Earth and Brendan Fraser's performance in particular. So that's pretty telling about how great he must have been in the movie to her, that she decided to have a career in acting just based on watching that movie. So I think that the fact that he was so nuanced, the fact that he had to come up with everything on the fly, that he had to do everything he needed to do to sell the idea that these people were walking into the center of the earth, which we know is impossible, and sell it so well. And a Jules Verne story that's really timeless. He did a great job, and I can only say that I think that that's the best movie he's ever been in, the best performance, disregarding The Whale, because that's a whole new thing.
And time. All right. Jeremy, back over to you. Final minute.
So while Brendan Fraser was good in Journey to the Center of the Earth, the movie as a whole didn't hold up to any kind of expectations. It seemed, like you said, the 3D use was early, so it was very experimental. And you could tell when you watch the movie, like the little hummingbird scene, you could tell that it's like they're punching you in the face with it. And there's a lot more going on there than just trying to make a good story. On the opposite side of that, George of the Jungle, they had no interest in any kind of deep storytelling using the works of Jules Verne as anything. They use a comic strip, an old 60s cartoon, and they turn that into a full-fledged, full-feature movie successfully. I mean, I'd never seen Leslie Mann before that, and I would never forget her. He plays a better version of the caveman than Encino Man. He's got more to him, and the whole all-around fun of the movie will live on forever.
And time. All right. We're going to go ahead and set you guys backstage for the judges. Jake, I'm going to go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Attempted to give Maria the point for that Encino Man comment, I'll tell you what. But I ain't going to be that petty. Big Biz gets the point here. He overall, it came down to the performance versus movie line, really, is where it was at. She kept throwing the performance. He admitted the performance, but we're talking about the movie he made. George of the Jungle. I was going to say Guardians of the Galaxy because I just wrote GOTG like I do. But yeah, Jeremy Potters.
Okay, we're going to ignore the fact that jungle is spelled with a J. Chad, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
I mean, I was actually very, very excited when Jeremy threw out George of the Jungle because I do love that movie. But I'm going to disagree a little with Tato. I chose Maria on this one. Reason being is because, she was hammering home the performance a lot, but she was also talking about the movie. She was talking about how it sold the fact that, she felt like she could go to the center of the earth, even though she knows that's impossible. And they both were talking about how each other's movies were kind of silly and maybe wouldn't work today, kind of a deal. But they were both selling their own individual movies, I thought. She was just hitting really hard on the performance and just basically saying that his movie is more silly, and I think he even admitted that maybe it wouldn't work today, or maybe. I'm not putting words in his mouth saying that he's saying that it didn't hold up, but it kind of felt a little bit like that, maybe that, it doesn't work for newer people today, kind of a deal. I got that vibe a little bit. I'm just trying to remember everything. I didn't actually take notes. But she just really crushed it, I think, even though it was a very close round.
Okay. All right. So it'll come to me. And yeah, I'm going to give the point to Maria on this one. I think that both of them were making more of a personal argument, more of I enjoy this than I think really an argument for best. But I think in that sense, Maria just had a little bit more, whereas I feel like Jeremy's was entirely supported just off the I enjoy this. There wasn't a lot there to back it up over what she was giving for Journey. But with that said, I'm going to put you guys in the back, and we'll go on to question number 4. And this question comes up because as of, we had to make schedule changes, so I don't know if this is still true, but as of the original week of the release of this match, the adaptation of the book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, is going into theaters that weekend. Again, I'm not sure if that's still accurate now because we changed the schedule, but that was the original intention behind asking the question. And it's an interesting piece of trivia with that movie. The director of that film, she previously had directed the coming of age film The Edge of 17, and a lot of people, when that came out, there was a lot of groundswell support of, oh, this is really cool, it's the first time we've seen a movie like this in a long time. And now in an age of franchises, people wanted to see a sequel, and obviously she chose not to make a sequel to that. She chose to adapt this classic book. I believe it's Judy Blume, if I'm remembering correctly. So she chose to go this direction with it, of another coming of age story, but not a sequel. And so that gave me the idea of asking the question, what coming of age film that was a one-off should get a sequel? Obviously, the further back you go, that leaves all sorts of options. You go immediate, you go modern day, lots of questions here. So we're going to go to you, Jeremy, first. The timer will start for you once you begin speaking.
First off, this is a great question. You never think of coming of age teen drama movies as anything that would be franchised. So I had to stop and think about this one for a minute. And the best one I could come up with, because I just want to know what happens next, is The Breakfast Club. They had one Saturday together in detention, and then everybody just walks off, fist pump, freeze frame. It ends. What happens next? Are they friends? Do they keep getting in trouble? Is there a next Saturday? So the movie I would like to see the most get a sequel that never did is The Breakfast Club. It's one of the most iconic movies from the 80s, to the point where it's referenced in movies and used as a plot point in movies like Pitch Perfect and Bumblebee. Like they use that movie as part of other movies. But also, what happens next?
All right, that is time. Maria, over to you.
My pick is Clueless. I want to know what happens next there. There was some unknown guy named Paul Rudd. I don't know who he is. I don't know if he has a career or whatever, but he was in there as an unknown. Alicia Silverstone was the main character. And, based on just the world, just the idea of someone that entitled and ending up with, ending up changing her opinion and becoming a human being. Or whatever you want to call it when entitled people realize there's another person besides them in the world. I loved it. I thought it would be great to follow her to college, see what happens to her there. I mean, as far as the movie that Jeremy's picked, it's good. It's very good. But I don't think, the Breakfast Club people are all going to either do drugs or get together and do something awful, because I think they're all not very good people in the first place. So we'll see. We can talk it out. But for my vote, it's Clueless. I'd like to see a sequel to that.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
The Breakfast Club really brought in that everybody's different, but everybody has problems. And again, this is a very 80s thing. There's no cell phones. There's no social media. Just what people say. They explore that. But what would it be like if there was? Like, what happens if you carry this on and in a sequel? Because obviously you couldn't set these people in high school today with the same actors, but you could use their kids. A new Breakfast Club, the next generation, if you will. I like to think that I would call it Next Saturday. But how you could have the same ragtag group of kids, but in today's context, right? With the social media, with the internet, with the influencers, with the way things work now, it would be interesting to see a subset of kids dealing with being kids while also dealing with each other in a school setting, and seeing how mentalities can change, how people can grow, and how at the end of the day, man, one day could change your life. You can make lifelong friends or not. We don't know, because nothing happens after the movie. So I would just like to see another Breakfast Club that maybe kids today can relate to, because there is nobody under 40 that can relate to the Breakfast Club. It's too old now to be relevant. So I would like to see them bring it back, bring some fresh blood, and tell a story using this as the reference point to give me a new age of a Breakfast Club, right? Because even though everything's changed, kids are still going to get in trouble. And let's see how they deal with it now.
All right, that's time. We're going to go back over to you, Maria. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Let me tell you what happens after the Breakfast Club. If it were to be a sequel now, there's meth now, there's phones now, there's all kinds of things now. These people would not have changed their stripes so quickly. I mean, it was fun that they bonded. They had a mutual enemy, the principal or whatever he was that plays that role so well in every movie he's ever in. I don't even know his name, but he does a fantastic job. And you know, they're not these kids are not going to change their colors that quickly. I mean, let's say that you wanted to do a sequel for that, and you'd have to bring it up to today. You'd have to have different kind of the whole vibe would be different. I mean, back then there was no, like as you said, no communication, no way to get a hold of each other, no way to actually do any of the things that we do today, where kids are just embedded in their phones, whether they want to be or not. Their faces are there all day, all night. Whatever you can keep them from is good for you. But with my movie, I think Clueless, the idea that an entitled white girl could possibly change and maybe make a difference in the world, maybe become a less entitled white girl and turn into someone who's really conscious of what the surroundings are, you know, what today is like. You know, today is not a kind person for these girls that think they know everything and they have all the money in the world. It's really ugly for them, and it should be, because it's about time somebody called them out on whatever they're doing that makes them think that they're so superior to any other race or any other person. So I think that would be more of a social commentary for today to have the Clueless 2 than it would be for the Breakfast Club 2, because we know those kids, maybe they made a change. I don't know. They had some catharsis there talking to one another. But I've also, when I was about 17, 16, took some illegal substances, perhaps. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I kind of was. And talked to her, you know, stuff about what I wanted to do with the world, and it never went to anything. I was always the same person. I never did anything with it, and that's just the way it was. So I think it would be hard for a sequel to come along and maybe make a difference that would be of any impact to the society.
All right. We're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Time starts back up when you begin speaking.
Well, I think it would be tough to make a Breakfast Club sequel. But they've tried and tried and tried, but they use it as a gimmick. Right? You got Jumanji. Oh, we're on detention. But then big budget action movie. They don't. Nobody does anything. There's no growth there. They tried it with Power Rangers reboot. A bunch of kids. A big budget action movie. Right? They keep it small. Like, there are plenty of great young actors. I mean, if you look at shows like Cobra Kai, you look at shows like Stranger Things, there are a ton of great young actors that could fill these roles for a new age story that's set in modern times with modern sensibilities, to show how people can disagree and then learn from each other.
Well, I don't know if they're going to learn much. The one girl's a thief, the other girl's, you know, on something, and the boys are all messed up. I don't know. I don't like the Breakfast Club. I'm going to be honest. I never have liked it. I didn't like the negativity that throws out, and I don't like the way they react to the, you know, I get it. The principal's a dick. I mean, I had a principal who was a dick, and they put a thing in my freaking yearbook, you know, not yearbook, but on the permanent record, Maria and her boyfriend take days off together. Yeah, we did, because you sucked. So there you go. But put it on your permanent record, or you give me, you know, a break. That principal seems the same guy. But you know, it's I don't like the movie. I don't care about the characters. I find them whiny and annoying, and I will admit to that. So having said that, though, I understand the appeal it has to everybody. I like the only movie of that era that I like is 16 Candles, and I love that movie. But the rest of them, you know, even the Ducky thing and all the bull crap with that movie, I don't like. So I'm gonna have to just pitch mine again and again, saying that Clueless, it feeds something inside. You know, it's really take on Jane Austen's story, Emma, and it's a way to, you know, understand that in today's language, or that day's language, which is still pretty relevant as far as like how people behave. Why you want somebody to be with someone else because you think you've got the, you know, the smarts to put these two people together and they'll be great, and they end up not being great. But I mean, she has to learn that for herself. She grows so much in that movie. She starts out as a spoiled brat and turns into an actual human being. And I like the Paul Rudd edition. He's low key. He doesn't do anything that's, you know, too crazy. Nowadays, who knows what he would do with that role? But I think it's great that it shows the growth of the character. And I think to see more of the growth, the sequel would be great. Let's see her in college. Let's see her using these causes that she was actually trying to get money for. And let's see what happens with that. I mean, is she going to be good? Is she going to go back to her entitled ways? I don't know.
So if she goes to college, then you've got this blonde haired girl from money and pomp and circumstance going to college. Then you've just got Legally Blonde, and they've already made that movie. They have not made a sequel to The Breakfast Club. Whether it would, I mean, obviously, if you made it nowadays, it would have to be like a legacy type sequel. We're not going to use de-aging technology to put everybody back to being 17 years old. As awesome and grotesque as that would be, obviously, we can't do that. But there's it, and like you said, Clueless is a version of Emma, but you could just go read Emma. Like, I know people don't read, but get your Kindle out. It's a book. It doesn't need to be redone and then a sequel to Emma. Why? We don't need. It's there. It's been there for 150 years or more. Go read it. Like, it's already there.
Logic is going to kill me. Yeah, you're right. It could be read, but I think it's interesting every now and then to see what it would be like in the real world. But that character, how she would behave and how she would act. And I think Amy Heckerling did a great job of directing this movie.
And time. All right, we're going to go to the 1 minute closings. Jeremy, over to you.
In a time where people seem to not agree on anything, right? Especially with all the distractions and all of the input and outside stimuli that we have, kids really deal with that seriously every day, way more than I do. My social media is null and void for the most part, so I can't imagine dealing with that in real life. But if we had a movie, it could show like different kinds of people are still going to school together. Just because it's a new age doesn't mean there's not a bunch of differences that people are dealing with every day. It's not so much the jocks versus the nerds versus the mean girls. It's very much changed from that clique mentality to just an overall, like, everybody's trying to figure stuff out. And it would be very interesting to see a modern version of The Breakfast Club where kids learn to come together. And obviously, you're probably going to have an asshole principal.
And time. All right, Maria, back over to you.
Is that guy still alive? I mean, that character actor was so great at being a jerk. I love him most in Die Hard. The thing that I keep coming back to with poor Amy Heckerling and what she had to put up with to get this movie made, and the fact that Alicia Silverstone it's the one that made her career, and I think it's the best movie she's ever made. It's just the idea of how does that translate? I mean, people are not going to change. People are the same since time began. You're going to have your people that are jerks. You're going to have your people that are compassionate. You're going to have these people that are, Karens, whatever they call today. And the idea that you could maybe take that into the new century and redo it with somebody like maybe Margot Robbie as the protagonist, or maybe somebody even younger than that. I can't think of anybody right now. And they would, Fanning family has a bunch of kids. Why don't you throw one of them at it? I think it would be great to see, because I mean, I think it's an age-old story. I mean, an entitled person turns into someone compassionate because of circumstances.
All right, we're going to go ahead and bring the judges in. Thank you, guys. We're going to sit you in the back. Chad, we'll go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this is actually pretty close. A couple interesting pitches there. I'm just going to go with the pitch that I actually liked a little more and wanted to see a little more, and that's Maria's Clueless 2. I don't know. I just thought it sounded interesting to see Cher back in college, to see Paul Rudd, since he's already like pretty established and, great, to come back for a sequel. I thought that sounded really interesting. And, even though she was like, basically her personal opinion saying that she didn't like The Breakfast Club, I think she kind of sold that like maybe the characters in that movie in the sequel wouldn't be that as interesting as you're thinking they might be. So, yeah, Maria.
All right, and then Jake.
Jeremy got this one for me because like the different problems, the updated nature of it, and it would be good for kids these days to have a Breakfast Club. I did love both pitches as well. This one was very tight. But Maria's whole thing of basing it on Cher's change, but saying that the Breakfast Club's kid couldn't change was kind of counter argumentative to herself. So that's where Jeremy gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. So then it comes to me, and I think again, both pitches were solid. I think there's good ideas in both. But Jeremy did sell me just a little more on his because I think he had a really good point about when you update something like the Breakfast Club to the modern day, obviously you can keep the bones of the story and sort of make the sequel that way, but the themes of it would change. Whereas with Clueless, it isn't like he made a great point of just comparing like the idea of sort of moving that type of character on into a sequel is sort of just what Legally Blonde was. Like you have sort of kind of seen that, even if it's not a proper sequel, they've done that concept already. Whereas I think taking his pitch for how you could sort of try and update the Breakfast Club so that it's still recognizably the Breakfast Club while still modern, because he is correct. It's not very relatable. I mean, I spent a whole day in film history class talking about that. So he made good points, and I think he brought the information to back it up. But with that said, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back. And this is the moment in these videos where there's normally a very awkward cut because I'm like slightly off center when we come back. But I'm in a rush behind the scenes. So your winner by way of a victory at 3-1 is Jeremy Potters. Judges behind the scenes, of course, you guys know if you have to take off, you're good to go. I'm just saving myself some time by doing this all together. Jeremy, congratulations, sir. You picked up a second win here. How are you feeling after that?
I feel good. Just want to thank you. Thank the judges. Chad, Tato, love you guys. You're great. Maria's awesome, man. She brought it. She brought it 100%, 100% energy. We are neither one of us obviously have any kind of polished debate skills. I'm just kind of doing this for fun, not trying to be too competitive. Still want to win. Like, I ain't gonna lie, it feels good to win. But she did great. And we got to talk about great movies and great topics. No downers, really. But that, debate is weird. To turn my trivia brain off and turn on debate brain is kind of weird for me. But it's fun. It's a good change of pace, and you got a great thing in. This is a great league. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously now at 2-0, you do, because you are obviously, I know you don't take it competitively, but you are on the leaderboard, so you do jump up that little bit more. Yeah. Are you curious to keep going and see kind of where you land next, or?
I am. Like, I gotta say, I got a taste last time. I got a full bite this time. Maria, man, she gave me everything I could handle. Like, every time I had a point, she had a good point too. So I know those last 2 points could have went her way also. Like, it could have went the other way. But yeah, now my interest is peaked, and I'm curious to see at 2-0 who's waiting on me. Like, who you got that's sitting there going, I can't wait for my next match. I'm going to use I can't, like, they're already taking notes. You know what I mean? Like, they're ready, whoever this is going to be. And I'm very curious.
Absolutely. Well, until then, sir, take care of yourself. We will see you next time, as we'll go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in Maria. Of course, obviously, nobody, I'll correct myself, very few competitors are rearing and ready to go from their first match. There have been plenty of worse debuts. So
really?
I mean, look, if you want to go all the way back to when the league started, I think we had not one, but three, because it was done by just random shuffle of the players. We had not one, but three rookies get matched up against former champions in previous iterations of the league. So certainly there's worse experiences. How are you feeling about your experience?
I loved it. I think Jeremy's a great guy. There's nobody I would love to lose to more. He's always been so very kind to me. I can't imagine anything but good things for him. And, I did my best. I mean, I tried really hard to get those points, but, this is my first match. I'm not polished enough yet. I learned something here today. I learned a couple things that I needed to know. And I think that's great. I mean, I like to do these things just for fun, and I enjoyed much of the discussion because Jeremy really was trying real hard to get there, and he did. And I think it's great for him. I don't mourn my loss. I think it's great that a friend of mine, somebody who's been so kind to me, that he won, and I didn't. And it wasn't that I handed it to him. I was trying to win. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I had fun with it. I think it's fun as far as like just the idea of battling these movies. I never thought of anything like that before until you had come up, and I think it's really a great format. I think you got a great program, and I really enjoyed myself. So I don't know if I would have swayed anybody's opinion, but I tried my best, and I can only learn from every experience that I have, and this is another one that I can take in and learn from.
Absolutely. I appreciate the kind words. I'd love to take credit for the idea, but Screen Junkies got it to me first.
Well,
but
whatever.
no, longer. So, obviously off the back of this first match, we've had plenty of players step into the league, more people than you would think, especially for how competitive some of these players become. Definitely take that first match, and it's a thing of like, I don't really know what we're doing here, so let's see. I mean, Jay Burns, who recently competed for the title, was a last-minute replacement who was like, I don't even know if I'll do a second one.
He's a buddy of mine too.
I love him. We've had competitors sign up and not know till they, like, especially way back when we first relaunched it, they showed up and didn't even know what they'd signed up for, because there was no uploads, there was no basis for it. They were just showing up to record and figuring it out as they went along. So now that you have that experience under it, are you interested to give it a try again, or was one enough?
Oh yes, I want to get better. I think I learned a lot here. I mean, I studied my little butt off. Not little. Okay, it's just but I can do better. I know I can. I think in the future, I've learned from everybody I watch and everybody I listen to. I think I can put those things to use, and I would love to try again. I mean, as long as you want to have me, that's up to you. But I appreciate the opportunity anyway. Even though I didn't win, that doesn't bother me. I'm just here to learn, keep my mind active, and let's go. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. Well, my obviously how fast the matches come, that's dependent, but I'll have anybody play who's willing to play. So it was good to have you here, and we look forward to the next time. Till then.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your kindness. Thank you.
Absolutely. Guys, so that is it for the first of two rookie matchups this week. As I said, Jeremy does take a second victory, sort of warming himself up into it a little more. And Maria is sort of, for lack of a better term, the toe is dipped in the water. Let's see where it goes from here. Sometimes you dive in all the way. Sometimes that shit's just too cold and you run the fuck out. So let's see where this goes from here. As for our other matchup this week, which I've talked about, it's a similar matchup. Joseph Burrows, who debuted earlier this year at 1-0, he is returning for his second matchup, and similarly to this, he'll be taking on someone he considers a friend, one of his members from his channel, Joshua Diggins, who makes his debut. You guys can tune in later this week for that matchup. But until then, thank you to my competitors, Jeremy and Maria. Thank you to my judges, Jake and Chad, for being with us. Thank you to all of you for watching. Please be sure to rate the video, drop a comment, subscribe, interact with the channel, and stick around for more Movie Battleground, because we have stuff coming at you every single week. And until next time, my name is Aaron Knoll. Take care, everybody.